Welcome to Under the Rug at Work, where we shine light on things that are normally swept under the rug. I'm your host, Nicole Turnbull, and today I'm chatting with Cherie Mylordis about using conscious unbossing to challenge outdated hierarchies. Cherie is the founder of nextgenify, a business transformation and innovation expert, work futurist, and a parent to three Gen Z professionals. Cherie, thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, Nicole, and hello to your listeners. It's an absolute pleasure to join you today.
Thank you. And for people who might not have met you yet, can you share a bit about your background and what led you to focus on conscious unbossing?
Yes, well, I'm just passionate about the world of work, and having seen the good, the bad, and the ugly over the years, I guess I'm all about helping inspire and equip ambitious professionals to do their best work and encourage others to do so as well. And so the term conscious unbossing really attracted my attention. It's a buzzword that I've just learned about in the last 6 months or so. It actually isn't new, though. It really does represent views that I hold about what good looks like in the world of work. And that's really about, well, we don't want just bosses that, dictate to us and give us instructions. We want to give people autonomy. We want to give people purpose-driven, meaningful work so that
Mm,
they can show up and feel engaged and connected to their work. And so conscious unbossing is shining a light on that, which is wonderful.
yes. And the work futurist, I know a few people with that title, and it seems a bit scary sometimes because it feels like the Jetsons. Remember back in the day when it was, 2020? And or they were in the 70s and we were looking at 2020 and we were going to have flying cars and all that sort of stuff. And things haven't really changed a lot since then. And I kind of feel that's how the workplace is as well. We try and do improvements. We're looking at psychosocial hazards. We're looking at all of these ways to create a better workplace. And the future of work is exactly what you've shared. We need to do things differently because the way we are working and who we're working with, and how we're working is completely shifted and shuffled. I think a lot in a good way. Now you have three Gen Z professional children who are emerging leaders, and you also provide, support to organizations around that as well. Why, in your words, do you think that it's gaining popularity?
So the term conscious unbossing has emerged from some research that was conducted in the UK about how people feel at work. Are they engaged? What's going on? And what came through is that the Gen Z cohort were saying, we don't want to be bosses. We
Mm,
don't really want to strive for that corporate ladder where we just want to climb up the rungs and become, a people leader, become in charge of a particular function or a P&L. They're basically saying we don't want to do that. And so I found that really fascinating. And that's where the term conscious unbossing came out. It's like this cohort of people in their sort of 20s to early 30s are saying, we are consciously wanting to unboss our careers. We want more flexible careers.
mm,
We want potentially career pathways that enable us to pursue a specialist skill or an area of expertise. We might want to, go off sideways for a while and then come back.
mm.
And so really they're just saying, look, we don't necessarily want to just follow that traditional pathway of a career progression. And that is actually music to my ears because we need people to have, different experiences in the world. When you have a side experience, you get insights and you have different ideas and you can come up with something creative that you wouldn't have thought of if you were in this narrow ladder, trying to climb this ladder, right? So yeah, and what we also see is that we're stuck in quite traditional ways of working. Like that pyramid org chart and putting people in boxes, it goes back to like the early 1900s. It goes back
Yeah.
to the Industrial Revolution, right? When we were training people or encouraging people to follow repetitive instructions and just do what they're told.
Mm,
Now, we don't need that now. We need people to use their brain. So with, the knowledge workers, professionals in more of a corporate or an office type environment, we want them to use their brains, but we're still putting them boxes within a triangle, right?
Mhm.
And yet, if we know where to look, we can find other inspiring examples where that's not really the case. And so that's why when you think about the future of work, and coming back to your point about the Jetsons, if you actually know where to look, you can find inspiring examples of the future of work already here. And yes, of course, we've got AI and all these other emerging technologies, and we need to grapple with that. But really, the future of work is about embracing purpose, autonomy, and giving people that flexibility and redefining what a boss is, redefining that leadership role, right? To be more empowering than giving those instructions.
Yes.
Mm.
And I love all of that. And your point about people don't want to be just told what to do. They want to add value. They want to innovate. They want to improve, make change. Like we can't continue working like we used to. It's the innovation and the people that makes the real change in a business these days, not doing the thing faster or more efficient in each scenario. So I love that point that you were making as well. I've seen a few people who have gone into the supervisor role, and then they went, "Oh, this is tough, and I don't want to deal with all the challenges that comes with this." And we need to be able to have people who can lead themselves, but they also recognize that leading people is hard, and especially when you're in that traditional hierarchy. So a few people are starting to take that step back and saying, right, I want everything that you've just said, that flexibility, the ability to do what I want when I want, have that sidestep. And you can't do that in the traditional way of working. So yeah, I love the way you're focusing on that. And I feel like people kind of struggle saying, wow, where do I start? This all sounds great and I'd love to do it, but how can people start to apply that to their own work?
Mm. Well, I think it's about having conversations with your leaders, right? And I think, I love the topic of your podcast about, what's under the rug and, what are the issues that are being swept under the rug? Because I think an issue that is swept under the rug is, what does it mean to be a leader? People still talk about, this is my boss. And there's that expectation, just by using the word boss, that this person is going to boss me around. They're going to tell me what to do, right? And
Yeah.
what I see is people get promoted to that level of being in charge of a team of people doing the thing that they have expertise in.
Yeah.
But there's a shift where people want to have a career path where they can sort of grow in their expertise. If you think about in technology,
Mm.
people who are great software engineers, they might want to become just amazing expert software engineers who is the go-to expert on something. They may
Mm.
not necessarily be inclined to leading a team of other software engineers. They might not want to let go of that hands-on work. And so
Mm.
you can apply that concept to many professions where, if someone is really great at what they do, enable them to grow and progress in that area of expertise rather than stop doing it and tell other people when doing it what to do, right? It just doesn't always fit with people. And so this concept that I think is swept under the rug is, what does it mean to be a boss?
Mm.
And I also find that when people are put in that position where they are in charge of people doing the thing that they're an expert in,
Yeah.
they're not actually equipped on how to do that. It's just like, oh, well, you're really good at doing it yourself, so now you can lead other people. And there's almost an expectation that they'll just know how to do that. And this is where I see it being swept under the rug. I
Yeah.
see examples like, a grad coming into a team, and that manager might not have had graduates before and don't know how to deal with a grad. And
Yeah.
they go, oh, I'm too busy to meet with you. You've just got to figure it out. Well, that's not what the organization is looking for. The organization has designed a grad program, and those experienced managers who've had lots of grads and who that comes more naturally to know how to do that well. But there
Mm.
isn't the oversight on the people that haven't had any, guidance on how to do that. So that's just one example of where I think the concept of what does it mean to be a leader
Mm.
is swept under the rug, right?
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, and I often get calls from clients, whether it's, someone being performance managed and they feel bullied, or someone, as you said, they step into a leadership role because they want the extra pay and they've been asked to be promoted, for example, because exactly what you said, the technical skills and abilities, but they're not given the tools to know what to do. So often it comes across when performance management needs to happen, or perhaps doesn't need to happen, but they can't have those challenging conversations or that understanding of how do I lead a new grad appropriately.
Exactly.
And they
Mm.
just get stuck. Like when we're not magicians, we can't go from doing a job to leading people without that mentoring, coaching, training, support, the tools, the templates, the how-tos, especially when it's the tough stuff.
That's right.
Um, and I would say
Mhm.
too that there are some people who shouldn't lead people.
Well, that's right. It doesn't come naturally to them. It's not really what would be for them, how to do their best work and feel like they're doing something meaningful and rewarding.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's not right for everyone, and it shouldn't be the only pathway, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
It
I
shouldn't
think it's a
stop them
really,
from growing, from improving. Like
that's right.
if they've
That's
got
right.
the they've got the great skills, how can you share that with
That's it.
to the team
That's right.
without having to be the boss, but also still being recognized and rewarded for that, right? Like,
Absolutely. And I
yeah,
think another key thing I'm seeing right now is, we're hearing about a lot of waves of redundancies, a lot of financial pressures on organizations trying to, squeeze out all of the, inefficiencies. And there's only so far you can take that, right? But what I'm seeing is with these waves of redundancies, the people in the middle are really under pressure. They're under pressure from the top. So the executives are putting those middle managers under pressure to just deliver more, just to get more done. So they're under a lot of pressure, but then they've got teams of quite disengaged people. We can see through global studies and in Australia that, well, 4 out of 5 people are disengaged at work because they're just not really, doing their best work. They're not really given the right conditions to thrive. And so what happens is these middle managers, they cascade the pressure, and I see examples of that micromanaging. So where are you at? Is it done yet? How's it going? And that is not how you bring out the best in someone, right? You equip them, you empower them, you take on more of that coaching role rather than sort of that thought in the side. How are you going? How are you going? Give me an update. Well, if you
yeah,
have the right rhythm in place for those, those short daily check-ins and
yeah,
work more visible, making the priorities transparent, working out loud so that the work is, it's visible and it's being worked on in a more collaborative way. You don't need to do that, right? So again, it's about what are the conditions to bring out the best in your people,
yeah.
and how do you manage that pressure in a way that can actually, become a way of getting value done, and
Yeah.
maybe sharing the challenges with your team and going, well, this is what we're being asked to do. Let's talk about how we might do that together. You might actually be quite surprised with how your team responds.
Yes, exactly. But as you know, when we're stressed and under pressure, we are not our best selves. And if we don't have the tools to be able to manage it and everything that you just said as well, those check-in points and all of that, then we just revert to the best that we think we can do. And especially if we're getting exactly that from upper management as well. What's going on? Where's this?
Yep.
It
Because
just,
they're getting that as well. So then they're just like, they're feeling stressed, they're feeling under pressure, and they revert to that sort of, those more sort of traditional, outdated methods, which
yes.
don't bring out the best. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't actually get more done, it gets less done.
Exactly, right? So conscious unbossing sounds like the way to go. Um,
Yes.
but what are some of the biggest misconceptions or the challenges when trying to shift to the new style of leadership?
Mm. Well, it's really interesting because I've been posting about this and speaking about this and interviewed in articles about this. And there's certain comments that I tend to get where it's like, oh, Gen Z's lazy, they're just too entitled, and they should just show up and do the work. That's what we had to do. So there's sort of this bias of the more traditional person who's been in that, that more traditional way of working where you just get told what to do, you're doing a job, show up and do your job, stop your whinging, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I actually don't see it that way. I see this as a wonderful new catchphrase that hopefully will attract more attention into, well, what does it mean to, you know, to enable people to do their best work, We've got a huge, chunk of people in the workforce and coming through that are that Gen Z cohort.
Mm.
And so if organizations don't actually lean into, well, how can we get the best out of these people who are going to be more questioning of the work, they're going to be more purpose driven, they're going to be looking for more flexibility, perhaps more active than some generations could have been, right? To actually, agitate this situation, which has just been, we've been doing it this old way for too long and it's not working, right?
Okay.
And so I actually think it's really healthy. But Gen Z also does have to show up and try and contribute and be engaged. And, you hear stories about them, working from home and playing on their Xbox and whatever. We all have a choice, right? We can be the clock watcher and, well, what's the bare minimum I can get through the day and then, finishes at the minute that I can. Or
Yeah.
we can be that catalyst. We can actually show up looking for opportunities to contribute, to solve problems, to connect people, to,
Mm.
shift the dial. And, you can have two people in the exact same job, and one's the clock watcher and one's the catalyst.
Yeah.
So what I always say is you don't need a title to be a leader. You
Mm.
can lead from wherever you are by taking little intentional steps forward in that direction of connecting your work to purpose,
Mm.
looking for ways to show initiative to solve problems, and how might you also collaborate and work together to deliver value. So by bringing that lens to it, it starts to actually influence that boss or leader and worker relationship, and you can actually influence upwards if you adopt some of these techniques. And you can do it in quite a subtle way, but it
Mm.
can really start to create a shift in the dynamic.
Yes. And having that solution mindset, like we're always going to have problems, right? But what are some of the solutions? Like let's spitball them together as a team. Don't just continue to go whether, no matter who you are, leader, team member, executive, whatever, never go with, hey, here's the problem. What's the solution?
That's right. To show
Yeah.
ownership in your space, whatever
Yeah.
your role is, like take ownership of that space and
Mm.
really try and engage and contribute. And you might be surprised what impact and influence you can have without even asking for permission.
Yes, because we're all hired because of the incredible skill set that we've got. So we have the solutions, we know the problems, and being able to have a few solutions together to come up with something even more incredible is the way you want to go. Having that kind of parent-child relationship of, oh, I've got this problem, can you fix it? Or there's this thing happening, please put a band-aid on
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
And what I tell my children and other professionals in that sort of age group is you are actually hired for your potential as well. So you're not expected to know all the answers. You're not expected to have all the skills that are needed. You've been hired for your base level of skills, experience, what education you've had. But it's also how you showed up in the interview. They saw the potential in you and they saw that you could be an amazing future player in this organization.
Yeah.
And so don't feel like you have to have all the answers. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but try and connect the dots and show initiative. And obviously don't keep asking the same question. That's not going to go down well. Just really think about things, have those check-ins. One of the things I talk about with Gen Z is the concept of a reverse brief. So if
Mm.
someone asks you something to do, I've seen it time and time again where they're like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. But they feel foolish by saying that. Like, I don't really know what you want me to do, right? And so this technique of a reverse brief is very quickly after someone gives you that instruction, you go away, have a think about it. You map out various elements, which there are templates that I provided to prompt people. And then
Mhm.
you go back and go, look, here's what I'm thinking. Can I check in to see if I'm on the right track?
Yeah.
Now, any leader would love that because it's like, okay, quick check in. Are we aligned? Is there anything that I need to tweak or give you a little bit of a different steer on? How much better is that than that person floundering for hours or even days and then
Yeah.
coming back with something that didn't really meet your expectations?
Yeah. And again, this is the future of work, right? And the micromanagement, or not having a leader who understands these things is a really great way to stomp out that initiative. So What would you say to a leader who wants to start working that way, but just isn't sure where to begin or how to do it?
Mm. Well, I would say to that leader, what is your purpose? So, really lean into why does your organization exist and why does your team or function exist? You've got to try and find ways to connect the work you're doing to the bigger picture to make it, have meaning, right? So, you've got to bring the meaning in. So here's how we're connecting to this particular strategic objective. Here's how we're connecting to the bigger reason we exist. And here is our current, challenge that we're seeking to deliver on, or here is the goal or the objective. So connect that all up and then cascade it down. And therefore, what we're trying to work on is this piece that will then enable this outcome into the bigger picture. So make sure you paint the picture. If there's
Mm,
a change, why are we changing, right? And why is doing what we normally do, the usual stuff, not viable anymore? So the
mm,
why has to come into it.
yeah.
Why do we exist? Why are we doing this work? Why are we changing? Always start with why.
Mhm.
And then look at the outcome. So what is that? What does good look like? What does the outcome look like? But don't be too specific or micromanagey about how you get there. Encourage the team to contribute their ideas on how to get there and have collaborative forums to discuss that, right? So that it's not just, individual job descriptions and instructions, but it's more, what is it that we're trying to deliver as a team? Where can we deliver the highest value as early as possible? And how do we have that shared ownership? Okay. And how
Yeah.
do I then create a space where people can contribute ideas? That's
Yes.
what I would say to a leader.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I was only having a conversation last week about someone struggling with a leader because they were giving the answers before having that collaboration. And often, when new leaders come into a role, they feel like they need to be that. They feel like they need to have all the solutions and be the hot shot because if you're not, then you're failing. However,
Yeah. Mhm.
it's if your team wins, then you win. And
Absolutely.
just having that shift in mindset and everything that you've just said about working together and empowering and having that ownership,
Mm,
you get better ideas when you can come together on that rather than
yes,
preempt, this is what I think. And then everyone's like, well, okay, you've already thought that. So,
that's right.
yeah.
Exactly. I've actually come up with a simple term that helps remind leaders and professionals on how to do that. And I call it working in 3D.
Mm,
So the 3Ds stand for dare, ditch, and dial.
hmm.
And so the dare is, what is that purpose? Why are we doing it? What's the bigger picture, right? So you've always got to start with that because if people don't understand why, it's very hard to get them engaged. And there's a lot of research around this. And then the ditch is, what are we actually doing right now that is slowing us down, that's holding us back? Where is there too much admin? Are there things that we do just because that's the way we do it around here that actually we should be questioning and challenging because they might not be delivering value? And I've seen so many inspiring examples of when teams are given permission to actually identify what could we ditch and pitch those ideas. It's incredible. I've seen companies do super ditch days and all sorts of things to make it fun. And when you actually give people permission to contribute, you might be amazed what ideas they come up with. So really explore what to ditch because it's often something that's overlooked. We are always having to deal with new things, new systems, new technology, new this, new that, but we don't actually take a step back and say, well, what can we ditch that will create space for the new stuff? And that's where the third D comes in, which is dial. So, what are some more contemporary ways of working in a more collaborative way, in a more visual way, in a more agile way, so that we have that shared ownership to deliver valuable outcomes, solve problems, and do meaningful work. So, if you just remember those 3Ds, it's a helpful little guide to inspire you.
Yes, I love that. And I've loved this conversation. It is such a great look on flipping the traditional hierarchies because they are outdated and they don't work in every situation. So to be able to say, how can we do this differently to get a better outcome, to get people on board? I absolutely love conscious unbossing. And I know that people will, listening, will want to know more as well. So what's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to learn more?
Sure. Well, I think I'm the only Cherie Mylordis on LinkedIn. So people are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. My business is called nextgenify. So nextgenify.com is my main site where you can find out about what I do. So I do consulting, coaching, speaking. I've also created an online academy to make future fit leadership more accessible to current and emerging leaders. So that is called Next Genify Academy, and it's a place where you can connect. There's lots of programs, tools, scenarios that you might be facing that challenge you, and so I create an overview of that scenario, and I curate tools that might help you deal with that scenario. I share stories of future fit leadership in action, and we have monthly coffee chats. So that's a way that's quite accessible where people can actually get access to more future fit tools. And then, yeah, there's lots of other ways that you can learn about me through looking me up online. So thank you
Love
for
it.
asking.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for sharing the insights, Cherie. I really appreciate it.
My
Um,
pleasure.
for listeners out there, if you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe and share it. We'll see you next time on Under the Rug at Work, where we continue to shine light on the issues that are too often overlooked.